My mom and I had a difficult relationship from the very beginning. I remember being a little girl and feeling like we just didn't understand each other. As I got older, things only got worse. We fought about everything, from my grades to my choice of friends. One evening, as I was trying to finish up my homework, my mom burst into my room. "What's this?" she said, holding up a math worksheet with a big red F at the top. "I'm having a hard time with that class," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "I don't care if you're having a hard time," my mom replied. "You need to get your grades up if you want to go to a good college." I knew she was right, but it was hard to hear her say it. It felt like everything I did was wrong in her eyes. As the years went on, our arguments only got more intense. We fought about everything from curfew to clothing choices. It felt like we were constantly at odds, and I started to dread coming home after school. Looking back, I can see that we were both at fault. My mom had her own struggles and insecurities, and I was a stubborn teenager who thought I knew everything. But at the time, it felt like there was no end in sight to our constant bickering. "I just don't get you sometimes," my mom said one night as we sat at the kitchen table picking at our dinner. "I don't get you either," I replied. "It's like we're speaking two different languages," my mom said, shaking her head. I didn't know how to respond. All I knew was that I was tired of fighting and tired of feeling like I could never do anything right in her eyes. The day started off like any other. I woke up, got dressed, and headed off to school. But when I got home that afternoon, everything had changed. I walked into my room, expecting to see my familiar surroundings, but it was empty. All of my possessions were gone. My bed, my dresser, even my posters were missing. "What the hell?" I muttered to myself, looking around in disbelief. I heard my mom's car pull up outside, and I went to confront her. "What did you do?" I demanded as she walked in the door. "What do you mean?" she asked innocently. "My room is empty," I shouted, tears of anger and confusion in my eyes. "Oh, that," my mom said dismissively. "I sold all of your stuff to buy myself a car." I was stunned. How could she do something so selfish? All of my things, everything that I had worked hard for, was gone. I felt like I had been betrayed in the worst way possible. "You can't just sell my stuff without asking me," I yelled. "I needed a car and I didn't have the money," my mom replied, as if it was a reasonable explanation. "I can't believe you would do this to me," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "You'll get over it," my mom said with a shrug before walking away. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. It was bad enough that my mom and I couldn't get along, but now she had taken away the few things that made me feel like I had some control over my life. "Why are you doing this to me?" I asked my mom later that night as we sat in the living room. "I'm not doing anything to you," my mom replied, her voice cold. "You sold all of my stuff," I said, my voice rising. "I did what I had to do," my mom said, standing up. "If you can't handle it, then that's your problem." I watched her walk away, feeling more alone and betrayed than ever before. After the betrayal of my mom selling all of my possessions, I couldn't bear to stay in that house any longer. I had to get out, even if it was just for a little while. I grabbed my backpack and stuffed a change of clothes inside before slipping out the front door. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away from my mom and the constant fighting. As I walked down the street, I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in a long time. For once, I didn't have to worry about what my mom thought or said. I was in control of my own life. But as the sun began to set and the night air grew chilly, I realized I had nowhere to go. I didn't have any money or a place to stay. I felt hopeless and alone. I ended up sleeping on a park bench that night, my backpack as a makeshift pillow. It was uncomfortable and cold, but I was too tired to care. The next day, I started to feel the weight of my situation. I was a teenager with nowhere to go and no money to survive. It was a scary feeling. I wandered around for hours, not knowing what to do or where to go. I felt lost and hopeless, but eventually I realized that I couldn't run away forever. I had to go back home and face my mom no matter how much it scared me. When I walked back into the house, my mom was waiting for me. "Where have you been?" she demanded, her voice filled with anger. "I just needed some time to think," I said quietly, avoiding her gaze. "Well, you can't just run away whenever you feel like it," my mom said. "You need to face your problems head." "I know," I said, feeling defeated. We didn't say much else that night, but I knew that things weren't going to magically get better between us. I had to take things one day at a time and try to make the best of a bad situation. After my failed attempt at running away, I knew I needed to try to make things right with my mom. We were still fighting constantly, but I didn't want to live my life in a constant state of anger and frustration. One day, while my mom was cooking dinner, I walked into the kitchen and sat down at the table. "Mom, can we talk?" I asked hesitantly. "Sure," she said, turning off the stove and sitting down across from me. "I know we haven't been getting along lately," I began, "but I don't want to fight with you anymore. Can we try to work things out?" My mom looked surprised, but also a little relieved. "I want that too," she said. "I'm sorry for selling your things. I know it was wrong and I shouldn't have done it. I forgive you," I said, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. "But we need to find a way to communicate better. We can't keep fighting like this." "I agree," my mom said, smiling. From that moment on, things started to get better between us. We still had our disagreements, but we were able to talk about them without shouting or getting angry. I even started to enjoy spending time with my mom again. We would go out for walks or watch movies together. It felt like we were starting to become a real family again. "I'm really proud of you," my mom said one day as we sat on the couch together. "For what?" I asked, surprised. "For not giving up on us," she said, giving me a small smile. "I won't," I said, feeling a sense of hope for the first time in a long time. It wasn't easy, but we were starting to rebuild our relationship, one step at a time. Despite our efforts to reconcile, there was still a lingering tension between my mom and me. We were getting along better than before, but there was still a sense of unease whenever we were around each other. I tried my best to ignore it, but it was always there, lurking beneath the surface. One day, my mom and I were in the car together, driving to the grocery store. We were both silent, lost in our own thoughts. Suddenly, my mom spoke up. "I know things aren't perfect between us," she said, "but I want you to know that I love you and I'm trying my best to be a better mom to you." I felt a lump form in my throat as tears prickled at the corners of my eyes. "I love you too, Mom," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. For a moment, the tension between us lifted, and I felt a glimmer of hope that things could really change between us. But as the days went on, the tension returned. We would get into small arguments over trivial things, and it felt like we were back to square one. I didn't know what to do. I wanted things to be better between us, but I didn't know how to make that happen. One day, my mom and I were in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner. I could tell she was upset about something. "What's wrong, Mom?" I asked, trying to sound concerned. "It's nothing," she said, turning away from me. "Come on, you can tell me," I said, putting a hand on her shoulder. "It's just... I feel like we're still not as close as we used to be," she admitted. "I want to have a better relationship with you, but I don't know how to make that happen." "I feel the same way," I said, feeling a sense of relief that she had brought it up. "Maybe we should try going to family therapy," my mom suggested. "We could talk to someone who can help us work through our issues." I nodded, feeling a sense of hope once again. Maybe this was the solution we had been looking for. As we made plans to attend therapy together, I felt a sense of anticipation. Maybe, just maybe, we could finally put the past behind us and move forward. Just when I thought things were finally starting to look up between my mom and me, I discovered something that shattered any progress we had made. I'd come home early from school one day and found my mom going through my room, rifling through my drawers and closet. "What are you doing?" I yelled, my heart racing with anger and betrayal. "I just wanted to see if there was anything you needed help with organizing," my mom said, a guilty look on her face. But I knew that was a lie. She was searching for something, and I had a sinking feeling that I knew what it was. I stormed out of the room and went to confront her. "Why were you going through my things?" I demanded, my voice shaking with anger. "I was just trying to help," my mom said, her voice wavering. "Don't lie to me," I said, my fists clenched at my sides. "I know you were looking for something, and I have a feeling it's something you have no right to take." My mom looked down at the floor, and I knew I was right. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What did you take?" I yelled. "My car broke down, And I needed money to fix it, she admitted. I took some of the money you had saved up. I couldn't believe it. After everything we had been through, she had betrayed me once again. I can't believe you, I said, shaking my head in disgust. I'll pay you back, my mom said, desperation in her voice. I don't care about the money, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I care about the fact that you would do this to me. Again, for a moment, we just stood there in silence. I'll give you some space, my mom finally said, her voice filled with defeat. But please, let's talk about this later. We can work through this. But I didn't want to talk about it. I just wanted to be alone. So I nodded and watched as she left the house. As the days went by, I felt a sense of numbness wash over me. I didn't know what to do or how to feel. But deep down, I knew that I couldn't let this go. And I had just the plan to do it. I couldn't let my mom's betrayal go unpunished. I had to make her understand just how much she had hurt me. And I had the perfect plan. I waited until my mom was out of the house, and then I went outside to her car. I took out my keys and dragged them across the side of the car, leaving deep scratches. It felt good to get some revenge. But as I looked at the damage I had caused, a sense of guilt washed over me. Was this really the right way to handle things? When my mom came back, she noticed the scratches on her car right away. What happened? She exclaimed, looking at me with confusion and anger. I did it, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. My mom's face fell, and for a moment she didn't say anything. Why would you do something like this? She finally asked, her voice shaking with anger and hurt. You betrayed me, I said, my voice shaking with emotion. You took my money without asking. You went through my things. How could I trust you after that? I'm sorry, my mom said, tears streaming down her face. I know I messed up, but this isn't the way to handle things. We need to talk about this, and we can work through it. I don't know if I can, I admitted, my own tears starting to fall. I feel like I can't trust you anymore. I understand that, my mom said, her voice softening. But please, let's talk about this. I'll do anything to make it right. For a moment, we just stood there in silence, the weight of the situation hanging over us. I need some time to think, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. Okay, my mom said, nodding. Take all the time you need. But know that I love you, and I'll do anything to make things right between us. And with that, my mom left the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. As I sat there, I realized that maybe revenge wasn't the answer. Maybe what we needed was just some time to heal and work through our problems together. I didn't know what the future held for me and my mom, but I knew that I was willing to try and make things work. Because no matter what had happened in the past, she was still my mom, and I still loved her.